me just take a minute to tell you a little bit about the AARP Purpose Prize. It's the only national award that goes to people over 50 who are social entrepreneurs, who've started nonprofits, who've decided to use their skills and their lived experience and their passion to make a difference in the world. We have 5 winners each year, along with a number of fellows. And in addition to a cash award, we also provide supports to the organization to help them grow. But the main reason AARP does the Purpose Prize, 1 is to support these wonderful organizations, but 2 is to shine a spotlight on people who just don't take no for an answer, who see a problem and go after it, who decide the world could be better and they're the ones to make it. So it's a wonderful legacy. I am really honored, and you've given me an opportunity to see 2 old friends that we haven't seen in a while. 2 women who are change makers, who are risk takers, and who are determined. So let me introduce Dr. Bettye Perkins, the founder and CEO. Now I always stumble over. Today's students, tomorrow's teachers.
You got it.
I got it. And Georgette Bennett, the founder and now board chair of Multifaith Alliance. So I am going to have the pleasure of asking them a few questions. And I think we'll start, it's a 2-part question, but let's start 1, 2, and then go back. And that is, tell us about your organization. And then I'm going to ask you why. What drew you to it? Why you, Bettye Perkins? Tell me about today's students, tomorrow's teachers.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Barb. And it is a real pleasure to be here and to connect with you again.
Yeah.
I think it's been 2018.
Too long.
And so today's students, tomorrow's teachers. You did get it right. Some people say students today, teachers tomorrow. That's still right. So, you know, it's exactly what it says. So what we do is we start high school students on a journey to encourage them to pursue this noble profession of teaching. And we're focusing on growing the next generation of teachers of color. So this journey is where we mentor, we train, we recruit them. These students are from underserved communities, economically challenged, and at the end of that journey, in high school, they want to go on to pursue teaching. So we have partnered with many national colleges and universities to offer them a minimum 50% tuition scholarship because many of them can't afford to go to college. College is expensive. And what we do in this full circle journey is we keep them connected with their home schools, and they go back into their schools and communities as teachers and role models to encourage their community to be better. And so they see these students and they say, you know, I came from this community, you went to college, you can do it, I can do it.
You have to see it to believe it. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Georgette, tell us about Multifaith Alliance.
Well, first of all, before I tell you and the audience about the Multifaith Alliance, I want to thank AARP for the extraordinary support that it gives to organizations like ours. It has made a huge difference in the way that we operate. So thank you to the Purpose Prize. So our organization is the Multifaith Alliance. It was called the Multifaith Alliance for Syrian refugees, but it's now the Multifaith Alliance because we're at a point where we want to apply our model to other crisis situations. We are an organization that provides humanitarian aid and advocacy for Syrian war victims. And so far we have delivered about $450 million of aid, most of it directly into Syria. And that has benefited nearly 4 million Syrian war victims. Those are much bigger numbers than when I got the Purpose Prize.
Yeah.
So you've been a big help. Our work is done with many local partners. We have more than 100 organizations that are partner organizations. And the way that we operate is that we check with our local partners in terms of what is actually needed. We don't just send stuff, because a lot of stuff that's just sent has nothing to do. It's well-intentioned, but it has nothing to do with what the real needs are on the ground. So once we're told what is needed, we source it, get it donated, we ship it, and we distribute it. And we make sure that everything that we send gets to its intended recipients. Because one of the major problems with international humanitarian aid is how much of it gets diverted and never gets to the intended recipients. I'm sure you've all been listening to news reports about what's going on in Israel and Gaza now. And you've probably heard the reports about the fuel that was sent to Gaza being stolen by Hamas and used for their own purposes in terms of it getting to the people who it's supposed to get to. Well, this is a tremendous problem, not only there, but in lots of places where humanitarian aid is delivered.
Great. Georgette, tell us why. Why you? Why Multifaith Alliance?
Yeah, well, it's sort of counterintuitive because I did this as a Jew. And you may have heard that Syrians don't love Jews, and that Jews don't particularly love Syrians. But I'm a child of the Holocaust, and I'm a refugee myself. And when I saw the reports about what was going on in Syria, I absolutely could not turn away. Leviticus 19:16 kept reverberating in my brain. Thou shalt not stand idly by while the blood of your brother cries out from the earth. And when I saw the pictures of the emaciated, tortured bodies in Syrian prisons, I was brought to mind of the walking skeletons in Mauthausen and Auschwitz and all of the concentration camps where so many of my family members literally went up in smoke. When I saw Syrians flooding across borders that were being closed to them, I was reminded of my own displacement. And when I saw the photos of the bombed out city of Aleppo, I was reminded of the city where I was born, Budapest, and the bombed out apartment building where I was born. So I felt I had to act. I had to do something. And I saw an opportunity not only to save lives, but also to build bridges between sworn enemies, in this case between Syria and Israel. Because much of the work that we did, especially in the early years, was done with Syrians and Israelis working in partnership with each other. And they were able to get beyond mutual hatred, mutual suspicion, mutual misconceptions in order to work together to alleviate terrible suffering. And that actually is what gives me hope in terms of what's going on in Gaza and Israel today. Because if these sworn enemies could actually work together in the way that they did, I'm hopeful that the time will come that other sets of sworn enemies can do the same.
I'm grateful for that hopefulness. Thank you. Bettye, tell us why you started your organization. What brings you to this work?
Well, today's students, tomorrow's teachers is really the story of my own life. So I grew up in South Carolina during, it was the segregation. And so all of our teachers were teachers of color. My father died when I was 5 years old. My mom had 6 children. We were just what we poor.
Yeah.
We say P-O, po. And but I was inspired by those caring, committed, dedicated teachers who cared about me. They cared about our future. I had no idea of what college was about, but they encouraged us to study hard, and that, you know, a good education was the way out of this poverty. And so I became a teacher because of those committed teachers. I taught middle school and went on, and I worked in corporate America, was grabbed up by a big blue company, had a very successful life, and just woke up one morning and prayed for purpose, was wanting to have a purpose-driven life. And I decided that my love for education, I was going back, and I wanted to become something in a school system. And so I earned a doctorate degree and wrote a thesis, and my passion was about really reaching back to those students who were like me and trying to encourage them that they too could go to college, and that teaching was a great, noble profession for them to do. My assignment was to help this school district, this one school district in New York, to help them look for more teachers and teachers of color. And so I thought about myself, and I got on this journey of working with 7 little students on a bus in this high school, and I forgot about becoming a superintendent, principal, I mean, any of that stuff. I was so connected to those students, and today I know where all 7 of those students are. They have earned doctorate degrees themselves. One is a principal of the largest, one of the largest high schools here in Westchester County, White Plains High School. And they are passionate and giving back. I see so many of them, and my passion to just inspire and motivate and change lives for deserving students is what I live for.
You found your purpose, didn't you?
Found my purpose.
Georgette, we sit here with Ideagen under the framework of the UN Social Development Goals. Tell us how your work connects.
Well, I actually looked at all of the goals and how we tie into them. And by the way, if you would like to know more of the work and this complete man bites dog story, you'll find 2 things on that table. You'll find a brochure that tells you about the Multifaith Alliance, and you'll see bookmarks for a book that I wrote about this really weird, completely unlikely story. So, how do we meet the UN SDGs? So, Goal 2, which is hunger, because we send food into Syria. Goal 3, which is good health and well-being. We actually have an office in Raqqa, which ironically used to be the ISIS stronghold, and we also run a primary health care facility. We distribute medicine, especially prenatal vitamins. We bring in medical equipment, ambulances, MRIs, almost anything having to do with medical supplies. Goal 4, which is quality education, because we provide school supplies. And we have even distributed a tablet that has the entire curriculum on it for Syria, whatever their equivalent is of kindergarten through 12th grade because half of the Syrian population is displaced.
Yeah.
And schools are destroyed, just as the entire medical infrastructure is destroyed. So this way children can learn from wherever they are. And I want to tell you a story about that because this is absolutely historic. The Syrians who put together these tablets actually showed them to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. The IDF did not ask for this. They were just, in fact, Israel helped fund these tablets. And nobody asked to approve the curriculum, but the Syrians said, please look at this. Tell us if there's anything here that you find problematic. Wow. Amazing, amazing when you think about the Middle East. Well, they did not find anything problematic. So we distributed these tablets so that Syrian children could learn from wherever they were. Clean water and sanitation. We are trying to get beyond just providing emergency aid to help create sustainable communities, which gets us to Goal 11, the next SDG that we address. Because especially in northern Syria, I'm sure you've been reading about cholera outbreaks, there's a tremendous shortage of water, let alone clean water. We have actually been bringing in Israeli technology, Ideagen systems, that take moisture out of the air and convert it into clean water. Each one of these machines provides clean water for 800 people a day. And we are in the process of negotiating, bringing in other technology which converts wastewater into agricultural irrigation so people can grow food. Because one of the tactics that the regime has been using is starvation by siege. So for people in the non-regime held areas to have a means to grow food is enormously important. So I mentioned that also addresses Goal 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. Goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. For 2 years, we were operating in southwest Syria because it was very easy to bring aid in. Let me go back a step. It was very difficult to access that part of Syria because it was entirely surrounded by the regime, which does not allow humanitarian aid to get into the areas it doesn't control. But there was one place from which it was very easy to access those areas, and that was through the Israeli side of the Golan Heights. So you would have large cargo containers that we would ship, many of them, by the way, from Syrian organizations who were ironically the first ones to take advantage of the opening of this channel over the Golan Heights. So they would come into Israeli ports. The IDF would transship the goods to the Golan, and then our partners on the ground in Syria would distribute the goods. But because we were working through local councils, extremists could not get a foothold there. So that was the only part of Syria that worked for 2 years. And because we were supporting 3 medical facilities and a bakery that produced 15,000 pitas a day, we were also helping to prop up some kind of rudimentary economy. But then there was a deconfliction agreement made with Russia and Iran, allowing the regime to come all the way up to the border. And it's amazing how it all fell apart the moment we stopped operating there. But it goes to show how humanitarian diplomacy, which is what we called what we did, how that can help stabilize areas. And then finally, Goal 17, which is partnerships for the goals. I mentioned earlier, we work with many, many
You
partners.
couldn't do your work without partnerships.
No.
Right. Effective partnerships. Tell me about you and the work, the social development goals.
Well, first of all, a lot of the goals, but primarily
Yeah.
quality education, decent work, you know, teaching is a noble profession, and economic growth. Teaching is the one profession that makes all other professions possible. Just think about that. You know, doctors, lawyers, it's those teachers that are inspiring and motivating those minds to be creative and innovative. And we need good teachers, and a good quality education is a civil right. It's a civil right for everyone. And so when we work with these students, they are learning how to become those caring, committed, and competent teachers. They're on this long journey. They go into the classrooms, they observe, they shadow. We train them on how to tutor. It's all this apprenticeship training that they get so that they are already in high school working with elementary and middle school kids and inspiring them already. And they are learning leadership skills. So they are these quality teachers that are caring, committed, and competent who will grow and inspire that next generation.
Yeah.
So we can see a full circle and revolving door of producing quality teachers for a quality education. And that's what we do. It is shown that over 60% of the teachers who stay in the profession, and retention is key, over 5 years, guess what? They made that decision to become teachers before college. Over
Interesting.
60%.
Yeah.
So pipeline programs that are apprenticeship type programs where you are really training these young people to be competent is very key.
I love the notion that the young teachers or in your program are bringing the next generation along as well.
Yes,
That's lovely.
absolutely. And it's great that many of them, it's been 30 years now, those 7 students are over 1,000 students today in 3 states. And, you know, you get to see exactly that. So in high school and college, they have mentors. So a lot of those students who have gone back to their communities to inspire that next generation, they are the ones who are mentoring 20 and 25 and 30 of those high school kids in high schools, you know, across New York State, Connecticut, and Virginia.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
We need you in Syria.
Can be easily replicated. You know, it's been 30 years. So if you think about it, where does that training happen? It happens in the schools. And that collaborative partnership that we have with those high schools, they give a space to go in and mentor the students. And what's very key is the partnership that we have with these colleges and universities across the nation, Syracuse, UConn, all of the Pace University, Fordham, all of the New York schools. And I'm grateful for the partnership of those colleges because these kids couldn't afford, they were like me, you know, poor. College was just not in the cards. So to have them, to give them money, a minimum 50% tuition scholarship is really, really key. So I'm just grateful for all of that. And they end up having decent work and contribute back to the economic prosperity of this country.
We don't have a whole lot of time left. How did that happen? But I want to ask each of you briefly to say, you're dealing with what would seem to be intractable problems, the Middle East,
Yes.
Education.
Yes.
How do you stay positive and move forward, Bettye?
Yes. Well, you know, we do have a lot of challenges. As you know, the teacher shortage is critical. I mean, many classrooms today, the kids are going into classrooms, there's not a certified, qualified teacher.
Yeah.
But what drives me is the fact that when you can see the fruits of your labor, I'm very blessed to see that when we invest in these young people, when you take people out of poverty and you help them to contribute to our society, and they go back and they give back, that is what will change our society.
You're
So
seeing the
this is
future.
what drives and
Yeah.
you know, so the challenges are, you know, you see them, you stay focused on your vision, and you just do it.
That's right.
And the kids will just conquer that.
That's great. Georgette, how about you?
So I'm going to be very brief this time. I consider myself a professional change agent of sorts, and I have a formula that I apply in every setting that seems intractable, but I want to be able to make a difference. And here's the formula. It's very simple. Find an entry point, identify a gap, find something doable. Doable is the operative word with which to fill that gap, and then stay tightly focused on that. Because if you look at the big picture, you'll be paralyzed into inaction. That's it.
Seems easy enough,
Right.
doesn't it? Don't you wish these two ran the world? Thank you so
Oh.
much. You inspire me. Your work is powerful. You're making the world a better place every day, and it's just an honor to know you. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank
And thank
you
you all.
for the support you've given us.
Thank you. Thank you.